You're listening to Aimee Keeps It Creepy, the podcast where I share my obsession with true crime and the paranormal with you. I'm your host, Aimee Brooks. A haunted bordello, scandalous ragdolls, a ghost with BO. This is the Red Onion Saloon. Hopefully you listened to my debut episode about that creepy bitch Lavinia Fisher and have already subscribed and checked out our website, creepypodcast.com. If not, and you like what you hear, please give the show 5 stars and subscribe on Apple Podcast or wherever you podcast so you never miss an episode. If you write a written review, make sure to screenshot your review and email it to info@creepypodcast.com, and you will be entered to win my favorite creepy candle of the week from acandlestory.com. A Candle Story makes luxury hand-poured artisan candles that smell absolutely amazing. Currently, they have several collections like Fairy Tale, Trailer Park Chic, and my personal favorite, the Creepy Candle Collection, where you can find candles like Psychopath, Haunted House, and The Husband Did It. Because it's always the husband. And don't you want to smell what a failed lie detector test smells like? I think I'm going to burn that one tonight. Go to acandlestory.com to pick up your creepy candle today or enter for your chance to win. Good luck. I love giving away free stuff to fans, so we will always have weekly giveaways on the show. Check out our website, creepypodcast.com, or on Instagram @creepypodcast for all the latest show news and swag. Thank you for listening and being a part of this creepy community. If you have a personal creepy true crime or paranormal story that you would like to share on the show, I know you do. Please email a brief description to info@creepypodcast.com. I can't wait to get creeped out. So, super creepy episode tonight. This is a fast forward because we just edited the show, and I think that an EVP was recorded. The hair on my arms is standing up. I've never recorded anything like that before during a podcast interview. I want you to listen to this.
I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, I guess, but
Okay, what did you hear? Because I heard a voice over my guest's voice. And she was alone at the location. It's Alaska. There were no other voices around. She sort of thought she heard construction at one point during the interview, but that's not a construction noise. That is literally someone that's recorded on the phone line. And I will tell you too, it's not a cell phone. She used a landline for the interview. I can't explain it. I don't know what it's saying. I listened to it a dozen times. I can't figure it out, but I'm going to stop listening to it because it's creeping me out. I really want to hear your thoughts. So you have to message me and let me know what you think it's saying. Oh, all right. Listen to the episode. Established in 1898, the Red Onion Saloon in Skagway, Alaska, served the lonely miners during the Klondike Gold Rush, and soon became known as the finest bordello in the land. Times have certainly changed, and the Red Onion is now run as a restaurant and museum. But some of the Red Onion Saloon's old inhabitants may still remain. Ooh, a haunted brothel. I am dying to know more. Our guest today is the curator of the museum, Cori. Thank you for being with us today, Cori.
My pleasure, Aimee. My pleasure.
I had no idea Skagway was such a hotbed of paranormal activity.
Yes, true that. It is.
Skagway was founded as a gold rush boomtown during the Klondike Gold Rush, a very exciting time in the United States. Tell me more about that.
Well, as you know, in the early 1890s, there was a Great Depression happening in the contiguous lower 48. That's what we Alaskans call the rest of the United States.
Right.
Just like we're not attached on the map.
But you're so a part of us. You're so a part.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So gold was found up in the Klondike, which is in the Yukon, about 500 miles from here. And, well, the Yukon's 11 miles from here, but where the gold was found is about 500 miles from here. And so began the Great Klondike Gold Rush. It started with the steamship Portland arriving in Seattle in 1897 with over 1 ton of gold. That's what the newspaper headlines read. And thus began the gold fever and the craze to go north. And so Skagway became a boomtown in about 1898. It was founded by Captain William Moore. He arrived here in about 1897 with a vision that this would be a great jumping off point for people who were going into the interior, and turns out he was right. So he had started a sawmill and he had a homestead, and when the Stampeders arrived, they basically, his intention was to sell them land, but they overtook him. But all the old buildings that I can think of are constructed out of the plank from Captain William Moore's sawmill. So the Red Onion Saloon, our building, you can still see the rough cut wood planks. They're about an inch. That's when planks were actually an inch thick versus 3/4 when they say they're an inch. Thus began our boomtown for 2 years. The Red Onion Saloon itself operated as a saloon, dance hall, and brothel or bordello.
There were a lot of guys in town. A lot of guys and not a lot of women.
There's about 15,000 men at any given time going through here, and only about 300 ladies.
Those are good dating odds.
You better believe that's the kind of math that makes me tired.
Oh my God. I mean, the women must have been revered. You walk down the street and it's like all the guys are just looking at you, you know? You're such a rarity.
Well, we do have a saying up here, which still applies today. The odds are good, but the goods are odd.
Oh.
In reference to the men.
I'm thinking about what that means. Okay.
And back then, for a woman to earn a respectable living, like as a laundress or a cook or a seamstress, she could earn $3 a day, which back that translates to I don't know, about $150, $300 today. I can't remember the math right now, but it's a lot of money. But the cost of living to be in Skagway during that heyday was $6 a day. So there's no way a woman could earn a living doing respectable work. So they had to become creative. And of course, with only 300 ladies in town and the odds being good, the world's oldest profession was booming here. And there was different levels of ladies working in town, all the way from those who worked the street to those who worked in the fine establishments of the brothel.
It's an expensive place to live, even back then.
And it still is today. Not quite as bad, but we pay $6 for a gallon of milk.
Wow. I thought living in LA was expensive. That's a lot of money. And you're a woman and if you don't have a man, you don't have a family, you're on your own.
Right. You're on your own. And there were some ladies who did some really creative things. There was Ma Pullen who made apple pies. Skagway's got a lot of rhubarb and apples, and we grow some decent fruit and stuff around here. And so she picked those apples and took old tin cans, hammered them into pie tins, and made apple pies and sold them for $7 a piece. Back then,
that's some good pie.
Really good pie, and people would buy it because they wanted a taste of home. They wanted some of those little comforts. You know how nowadays all the stores are running out of toilet paper? Well, back then it was the pie.
Wow.
Those comforts. And they would buy old periodicals just to get a piece of news because it took a while to get up here back then. So the periodicals would be newspapers and stuff could be outdated from down south, but people were so hungry for a little bit of home that they would pay the price for it. And so when the men came up here and, there's these lovely ladies, sometimes they just wanted companionship.
They wanted to buy some pie.
Well, yes.
One way or the other.
So the ladies on the streets, we call them the streetwalkers, or like back alley Sally, that kind of a thing. Those ladies were turning tricks for $1 a pop. Now, that's $1 back then, which is not that much and definitely not worth the risk of venereal disease. And then there was the ladies who worked in the crib, those are the gals who worked out of 10 by 10 little shacks. I don't know if you've seen those Gold Rush photos where they're tiny little buildings and there's ladies standing out front, possibly with a little dog. Those buildings are called cribs, and they were just small rooms that the girls operated out of. Sometimes two women would operate out of one room.
Yeah, I would have had a big dog for protection, because that's a dangerous life.
It definitely was. A lot of those buildings are sometimes they're owned by pimps. And so, yeah, it became a little bit more dangerous, but sometimes the ladies own them themselves. So that was a little bit safer. But then, of course, you have to worry about all the disease and stuff because that was rampant, and contraception was not, the silk condom is not going to protect you from anything. But they did have prophylaxis back then, but not like what we know today.
Those old miners weren't using condoms.
No. So you can just imagine the disease.
Oh, yeah. It's gross. Oh.
Gross. And then, from the ladies who worked in the cribs, then you go up a notch to the ladies who worked in the brothels. Now, working in a brothel, you would get paid roughly $5 for 15 minutes of service. That's a lot of money back then. I mean, if you translate into today's time, today's currency, that is a lot of money. And the brothels were generally a little bit safer because the madam, who is the businesswoman who ran the place, would make sure the girls were looked after. The Red Onion was the most expensive brothel in town and one of the finest establishments. So the girls here were educated. They had all their medical expenses taken care of, because the madam's investing in these women. So she's making sure they're healthy. They were finely dressed. And, they were taught special skills and conversation skills because sometimes these guys just wanted a pretty lady to talk to. And they would pay for that. And so at the Red Onion, it operated as a saloon downstairs and a dance hall. These ladies there would be ladies who were not prostitutes. They were different. They were percentage girls. And so minors would pay $1 a dance with these gals to just twirl around the dance floor. And then she would try and sell him drinks and get him to purchase her drinks. On every drink that he purchased, she would make a commission of.
Oh, yeah. It's all about the upsell. Totally.
It's all about the upsell. And the bartender's pouring water for her, but the minor is paying for champagne, that kind of thing. And she's taking a cut of that. So those gals earned their living a little bit more respectably by our standards, but not by Victorian standards. And then the ladies in the brothel, it was $5 for 15 minutes, and the girls got to keep a quarter of that. So the way that the money got divided up was the madam would take half right off the top. She takes half. And then the girl would get a quarter, and the bouncer would get a quarter of the profit of the transaction.
And Cori, how do you know all this? Are there records?
Very minimally, and a lot of research. And a lot of the research was done prior to me. So when I came on, we had a head tour guide who did a lot of the research, and we compiled what we could. There's not a lot of documentation about who was doing the job. When they did get arrested, they never gave their real names. And I just want to clarify, prostitution was not legal in the state of Alaska, nor is it today, but it was tolerated as a necessary evil for a little bit of time. Yeah,
you had a bunch of lonely guys. You didn't want them, they have to get their aggressions out,
Right. Well, and this town was chaos. It was muddy streets, and wall tents
and testosterone and people looking for gold.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I can only imagine.
Murder, mayhem, and disease. It was pretty epic back then. I mean, it's fun now, but it was really epic back then. And it only lasted for 2 years. This was a boom town for 2 years. And then the population went from the 15,000 down to around 1,000 to 800. And we've maintained that for the last 120 years.
Wow. So at the height of the boom, the Red Onion Saloon was the place to go.
It was the place to go. It was the most expensive and illustrious saloon and brothel in town. Now, we operated on a really interesting system for how the gentleman chose his gal. A gentleman would walk into the bar, and we still at the Red Onion have the original bar and bar back on one side of the bar, and the other side is a replica, but we've got the original diamond-shaped mirrors from the bar.
Wow, how beautiful.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's really a spectacular little place. And when I think about the gentlemen that have probably fallen asleep on this bar or their elbows on it, if this wood could talk, the stories it would tell. So the gentleman would walk into the saloon. He'd belly up to the bar, order his drinks from his bartenders, get a couple shots of liquid courage. He would look up behind the bartender, and see a row of 10 dolls. Now, each of these dolls was made to look like one of the dolls that worked upstairs. So if I was a blonde with blue eyes and my favorite color was purple, my doll would probably be wearing a purple dress. And she'd have blue eyes and curly blonde hair.
That's amazing. And to be competitive, you really had to have a hot looking doll. I mean, I bet the girls fought over who had the sexiest doll because, they're going to pick the sexy doll. They're not going to pick the kind of raggedy looking doll at the end of the bar.
Well, you never know. Everybody's got a type, right?
Yes, they do.
You never know. And so the gentleman would choose the doll of his choice. The bartender would lay her on her back.
Oh, literally. Oh.
Yes. That's how you knew who was occupied and who was available.
God, that's awesome. I am never going to feel the same way about going to a doll store, like the American Girl store.
Nor should you.
You go in there, it's all the dolls up. Oh my God, I have to see what these dolls look like. I have to check it out.
Well, it's really hard to find them because the girls would take them from place to place. And what I think they were was a rag doll that was made to look like the girl. Like they weren't fancy because the reason I'm saying this is because from here, Skagway was a really temporary spot. It was just the jumping off point to getting up to the Klondike and the gold. Here, the only thing to mine was the miners. But up in the Klondike, you could find the nuggets, you could mine the miners. There were more gold rushes that were happening throughout the state. And these girls tended to move from one gold rush to the next because that's where the money was. They followed the money. So to get to the Klondike gold field, like I said, it's over 500 miles away. You would go from Skagway, you'd get out to Dyea, which is 11 miles out of town now, but back then there wasn't a road, so you'd have to go by water. Get out to the Dyea town site. From there, you have to hike 36 miles over the Chilkoot Trail to Lake Bennett. Now, this is a mountain pass. I'm sure you've seen the picture of the people with their packs on, and by packs, I mean a box strapped to their back, a wooden crate strapped to their back, just row after, person after person after person hiking over this snow-covered path. Have you seen those pictures?
Oh, it was an intense time. And I'm sure there were accidents. And it was a dangerous time.
Very dangerous. And you were supposed to take one ton of goods with you because people were arriving in the interior ill-equipped and then starving to death. So you had to hike all this stuff over the Chilkoot Trail. So you're going back and forth, or you're hiring somebody to go back and forth, multiple trips to get your 1 ton of goods up to Lake Bennett. So once you get it there, you have to build a boat, and then hopefully you can build a boat that floats, and then you get onto the water system that's about 500 miles to take you up to Dawson City, which is where the Klondike goldfields were. So this was not an easy trek. A lot of people died due to accidents. You had to haul all this stuff, and so these girls would move from here to the next place. So their dolls were not going to be fancy porcelain breakable dolls. They were more likely rag dolls that were just a semblance of what they look like. So we don't actually have any in our hot little hands.
But I can imagine a little sexy rag doll. I get it. And then they stick it in their backpack and go on. They go find the gold.
Right. And find the gold. And one way to tell if a lady was a prostitute back then was striped stockings, like horizontally striped stockings, as well as red. Red was a huge indicator. So if she was walking down the street, had a dog on a leash that was red, that lady was advertising that she was available. Or if she had red lace peeking or a red hem peeking out of the bottom of her skirt, that meant she was available. Or if she planted red geraniums in front of her house, or red curtains, or had a red eaves on her house. All these things were announcing that she was a house of negotiable affections. So be careful what kind of flowers you plant in front of your house. Or you might attract some gentlemen callers.
Oh, okay. I'll remember that. I wonder if they know that at the local Home Depot.
Probably not.
Check out the Aimee Keeps It Creepy Patreon page, where patrons get commercial-free early access to Aimee Keeps It Creepy each week and are automatically entered in our weekly listener giveaways. Patrons also unlock exclusive videos and bonus podcasts. I post cool stuff on a weekly basis, so you have to check it out. The latest video series is my pajama party ghost hunt of my own house, which, yes, is haunted by not one, but two ghosts that we actually identify in the series through EVPs and historical research. Believe me, I'm equally terrified as I am annoyed at my realtor for not answering my question honestly when I asked her if the house had a paranormal past. Oh, trust me, it's creepy. And for even more creepy fun, there's an exclusive tier that gets monthly candles from a candle story and an even more exclusive tier that gets a monthly Zoom call with me to discuss all things creepy. It's going to be so much fun. Go to patreon.com/creepypodcast. Or you can also find the link in the show notes or on our website, creepypodcast.com.
So anyway, back to the dolls. A gentleman would go upstairs. He would be met by a bouncer who would escort him down the hallway to the chosen lady's room. Now, upstairs, our brothel was 10 rooms for 10 ladies, 5 on each side of a long, narrow hallway. And those rooms we call crib rooms as well. They were 10 by 10. And one lady occupied each room. Here, the gals we had a couple different madams that came through and ran the brothel. We don't really know, of course, because there's no actual written record, but we have stories of who it could have been. And one of the madams would try to offer incentives to the girls to have them move in. And one of them was to be able to redecorate her room with wallpaper, which was not an easy thing to do back then because you had to get it up here. And the wallpaper was absolutely gorgeous and hand painted and really stunning. And we found in some of the rooms up to 18 layers of wallpaper. So that to me indicates that it was really high turnover of ladies going through this brothel, working, maybe moving on to bigger and better things or another gold rush, maybe getting out of the business. Some of them maybe ended up sick and dying.
But nonetheless, enticed at the Red Onion by interior design.
And maybe the delicious drinks. Who knows? Yeah, so these girls would come to work for a madam, $5 for 15 minutes of service, and they would work 12 hours a day from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah, they were making money. They were making mad cash.
They were. They were, absolutely. And like I said before, sometimes these guys just wanted to pay to talk to a woman because they were so starved for female affection and attention and seeing a woman kind of thing. And just to kind of give you an idea, so we're in Alaska. It's cold in the winter. These walls are the interior walls are literally planks that have wallpaper on them with gaps between the planks. So at some point there's no wall. This is covered in wallpaper. The walls to the exterior are not insulated because when they were building these buildings, they weren't supposed to be permanent structures. So they went up quickly. They didn't take the necessary insulating factors, that kind of thing. So basically, I'm sitting in a bar that is really cold right now.
Yeah, it's hard to feel sexy when you're cold, at least for me.
Right? I mean, how much wool can you put on?
They weren't wearing wool. They were wearing little skivvies around with nylons and high heels.
No high heels, probably.
Oh, really?
Don't need shoes.
Oh.
Well, no, of course they had high heels, but it was also impractical to hike around. They're going to hike the Chilkoot some of them actually did wear heels, but anyway, they did have heels. but you're not going to need them. You're going to be flat on your back, right? For 12 hours a day.
Oh, right.
So it was really cold. And we're not open in the winter still because it's cold. The building is still not insulated. In fact, there are spots in the brothel that you can see through the slats to the outside. And we did find stockings shoved in there and newspapers, and really we found a few artifacts like hidden in the walls and under the floors. It was pretty cool.
That is cool.
So with our doll system, well, when the gentleman was finished his 15 minutes, the bouncer would knock on the door, ask him for more money, or his turn was over. And when the guy came back downstairs, then his doll would be sat back up at attention, letting the rest of the patrons know that she was available for business.
Absolutely fascinating. So a lot went on in that saloon, a lot.
Yeah.
And tell me about who's still lingering from the past.
Oh, you want to hear about Lydia.
Yes, I want to hear about Lydia.
Lydia is our resident ghost, and she loves it when we tell her stories. She also is a prankster. She likes to play tricks on people, which sometimes is annoying, but sometimes is really funny too.
Wait a minute. How does she play tricks on people?
She likes to move objects. She likes to hide things. And then when you and it'll be like days where you're missing something and you swear like it was right there and it's been gone for days. And you're just like, Lydia, come on. Can you please put it back? And then the next day it shows up.
Oh, wow.
But it only happens in the brothel and I think sometimes in the bar. But I'm more aware of it up in the brothel, in the museum. It's a museum. It's a former brothel.
Yeah, let's be straight there, okay? Those red geraniums in the front aren't very accurate these days.
You're only going to get talked to. Yeah, so she likes to move things. She's really funny that way. Or she'll like to, if you're busy working on stuff, cleaning, like there have been quite a few ladies who've had our tour guides clean the brothel, they dust, which is a sort of endless pastime here because the walls are not insulated and the wind blows all the dust right through. But quite a few of them have been up there, heard footsteps come up behind them, feel a tap on their shoulder, and they turn around and there's nobody there.
Oh,
yeah, it's Lydia. Or she'll say your name, which is really fun. Like right, I had a couple of girls had it happen right in their ear. So they hear this. Her name was Sam at the time. Sam.
Oh.
She's like, yeah. And it's happened to me. She's said my name in my ear before too.
Really?
Like, okay, I'm paying attention. Hi. Oh, if you don't say good morning when you walk upstairs. So you walk into the building and then you go up the stairs, you go into the dressing room for everybody to get ready to do tours and for the day is in one of the crib rooms, what used to be the crib rooms. So the patrons just get to go to see the museum. It's about 3/4 of the museum is available for viewing, and the rest is our behind the scenes stuff. And by the time you walk into the brothel, if you haven't said good morning to the ghosts that live in this place, they're going to do something to you. Lydia especially, she loves to, if bartenders come in and they don't say good morning, she will not let them get into our safe to get their money for the day. You've done that safe 100 times. You've done it in your sleep 100 times. You know how to get into this safe, but if you forget to say good morning.
So these spirits, they don't want to be forgotten.
No, she doesn't. We talk about Lydia on our tours. Anybody who comes on a brothel tour hears about Lydia, hears some of her stories. She loves it when we talk about her. I think my personal feeling is that she wasn't recognized in her living life. And as a ghost, she's become infamous. We talk about her all the time. And she's been on TV shows, podcasts. She's been on the Travel Channel. Her stories have been told in books. Like, she's kind of famous.
Yeah, she's at least like sea level famous. Good for you, Lydia. In the afterlife.
In the afterlife. Who knew this was a thing? So Lydia, from what we can tell, is she was a respectable woman who came up here with a husband, brother, father, somebody, some male traveling companion. Whether it was a relation, we're not sure. and what this happened quite often to women is they would come here with a man, and then the man would say, hey, I'll go, if the trail's really difficult to get up there, you stay here in Skagway and I will send for you once I get to Dawson City or Strike It Rich or whatever they agree upon. And quite often these men would perish along the way. They would fall in love with somebody else, or they would completely forget about the woman they left behind at Skagway. And so these women would end up stuck here trying to make an honest living. And like I said before, an honest living can earn you $3 a day, which is not quite enough to make it in Skagway.
You need 6.
You need at least 6. And so Lydia came to work here under the madam who enticed the ladies with wallpaper, with redecorating.
She was a character. I wonder if she's still there too.
The madam?
Yeah, the wallpaper chick.
Well, from what I can gather and from our history, she did not die here. And so we do not think that she is still here. She moved on to bigger and better things.
But Lydia.
Yeah.
Lydia's here.
But Lydia. So Lydia ended up here. Oh, she's such a sweet thing. She was a tiny, petite woman, as most Victorian women were back then. And she is seen occasionally in our brothel. And anyway,
wait a minute, she's seen? People have seen her?
Yeah. Yeah, people see her.
That's crazy.
I've seen her.
And they describe her?
Well, okay. They can. I'm not going to describe her. Beyond saying that she looks like a respectable Victorian woman. And the reason I won't describe her is because I don't want people to be able to Photoshop ghost pictures. Be like, oh, look, here's Lydia.
Oh, no. Our listeners would never do that. They might. They might. If they're bored one night, Photoshop Lydia.
Right. Why not? She's a petite Victorian woman.
Her doll was adorable.
Right. Her doll was totally adorable. And it had a bun on top of its head. So like a typical Victorian hairdo. There we go. I will say this. Her favorite smell is lilac. Sometimes when Lydia walks through the room, you'll smell the waft of lilac.
And that's such a Victorian smell because lilac is not in perfume anymore. That is an old-fashioned smell. Wow.
A very old-fashioned smell. So that's something that people would experience. But anyway, we have gathered that Lydia ended up with an STD. And unfortunately back then, quite often what would happen was the madam or the pimp, depending on which level of the hierarchy of prostitution the girl worked in, she would end up with a scar across her cheek, basically branding her as an untouchable because she has got an STD. So when you're working in the world's oldest profession and you are no longer touchable, what else are you going to do? And a lot of ladies ended up taking their own lives. And Lydia was one of those.
Oh my God.
She has been seen. This is how we know that this has happened to her, is she has been seen hanging in one of our rooms.
Oh.
So she told us how she died by her own hand.
She wanted to show people. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so sad.
And she does have the mark on her cheek. I will say that. So that's also how we figured.
So if they've seen a ghost that had a mark on her cheek, that's insane.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have known that.
No.
Because that's very specific.
Yeah.
Brutal.
Yeah. It was really sad. You know, you watch the movies and it looks all fun and rambunctious. They show the good. There's a lot of glorification that happens. It was a hard life. Just not being a prostitute was hard life on the last frontier. But then you add that level of social stigma and, you know, you're at risk for so many different diseases and violence and all that stuff. It's brutal.
Oh, yeah. And you have to be with all those funky gold rush guys. Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
I bet they smelled great. Know what? She's spraying lilac perfume all over that wallpapered room.
Oh, yeah. They didn't have Lysol. Well, actually, they did have Lysol back then, but they didn't use it the same way we do nowadays and spray and wipe. Lysol was used for other things back in the day.
Oh, to stop STDs? Is that what you mean?
Well, it was used as a form of contraception. Do you want me to talk about this?
Ouch. Sure.
Yes.
I mean, I think it's relevant because I think the spirit's there. You know, we're Lysol douching because that's not fun.
No, no. Here's what's fascinating is we also do have we had a guest who gifted us a Lysol bottle that had never been opened, and right on the bottle it says what you can use it for, and one of them is douching.
Ah!
Yeah, it's exactly like imagine.
That's a recommended usage. Wow.
That was a recommended usage right up into the 1950s. This fascinated me, so I started researching it. I found magazine advertisements for Lysol douching. Like, don't ask your husband about, or don't tell your husband about his day. Meet him at the door with a martini, fresh and clean, after you've done your Lysol douche.
Oh!
And ask him about his day. Rub his shoulders. It is really not, I mean, that was the time.
I wonder if that was like a sexy smell back then. It's like, oh, you're so clean.
Fresh and clean. I could think of better ways to do that without burning out your vagina.
Oh my God. Yeah. Ouch. Oh, yeah. This is the making of spirits right there.
Right.
It's traumatic.
It's very dramatic. They also used laudanum as a form of contraception, which laudanum is an opiate.
Yeah, and just to get through the day.
Right. Also, I think it had a bit of numbing effect down there. And then they would use Coca-Cola. And back then, Coca-Cola was made with cocaine and a phosphate, and it would essentially turn you into an addict as well. It would wreck your insides. Basically, it would start eating them away. It was caustic. That's the word I'm looking for. It was caustic. And it would cause a great deal of more issues.
Yeah, I mean, it cleans a penny nowadays. So I can only imagine what the ingredients back then was doing to women.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's not funny. It's awful.
It's awful. You have to laugh because it makes you feel so uncomfortable.
Right. Like, wow. And of course, they had silk condoms, which don't work, but I can't imagine we're very comfortable either. In fact, there's a house in Ketchikan, Dolly's House of Negotiable Affections, that she has a curtain made out of silk condoms. It's absolutely fabulous.
Wow.
Yeah, she made her shower curtain out of silk condoms.
That's creative.
Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful too. She made like rosettes out of them. It's really beautiful.
See, my mind goes to, wait a minute, were they used condoms? And, it is a usage. It is like upcycling.
Well, also they were hard to get. So when they did have condoms, they would rinse them out and use them again. They weren't disposable like they are nowadays. So times were tough. I've heard we have a few other spirits that are here in the building. People, guests come up and we have mediums or people that are sensitive to the spirits, and they tell us what they see or who they see. People also send us pictures. A crazy story. Last summer, or they all blend together. Maybe it was I think it was last summer. Two different guests, different tours. They were a week apart. They went on tours through our museum, and they both sent in pictures of what they thought was a ghost. And it was the weirdest picture I've ever seen, like as far as how clear, how defined, how absolutely terrifying both these pictures were. And it was the same woman, not Lydia. It was not Lydia. It was like a girl, and she was in these pictures in different angles in the same room. Both the pictures were taken in the same room. It freaked. I mean, we're kind of a little bit used to the paranormal around here, but that one made a lot of us cringe, gave us the heebie-jeebies.
Oh, it's not just Lydia there. You have lots of spirits there.
Absolutely. I mean, our whole town is haunted. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would be mortified that I say that, but I can think of stories associated with all the old buildings in town. And just the construction of our valley, it's a very strange place, like in the spring and the fall. So we are based on tourism. Our community is a tourist destination in the summer. We have a port, and the cruise ships come in here anywhere from 1 to 5 ships a day. So our population goes from 1,000 people to 15,000 people in the span of a few minutes as a result of the cruise ships coming into town. There's a lot of energy with the spring, people coming into town and businesses opening up again, because in the winter they're closed because there isn't industry here. And then in the fall, there's this energy going out of town as people leave for the winter. They close down their businesses. And I've noticed that the spirit activity is higher in the spring and the fall. And not just in the buildings, but there's like different places around town where I've experienced things, or I've heard stories of people experiencing.
And you think it's the heightened energy that happens when all the tourists are there during the season?
I think it has something to do with it. I mean, I can't say for sure, but just what I've noticed over my time here, that, and maybe my awareness is heightened, I don't know, but that seems to be when the weirdness starts happening a little bit more. The supernatural.
Ooh, tell me more. I want to hear more weirdness.
Okay, well, I've obviously been avoiding talking about one particular ghost we have.
Oh, he's a bad guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't talk about him in the building, and I'm sitting in the building right now, but I will talk about him for this. So please forgive me. How this came to light. Many years ago, a couple different things had happened to different tour guides up in the museum. One particular day, one of our ladies was changing, and the door slammed open, and she was like, "Get out of here." And then the door slammed shut.
Oh.
There's no way that can happen. There's absolutely no way that can happen by itself.
And it responded to what she had said.
Oh, yeah. Well, you didn't mess with Madam Spitfire. Everybody. She commanded everybody. She's a force to be reckoned with. Still is. And then another day, another girl was up there changing. She heard footsteps come in. The door was closed. She heard footsteps come in, and she's like, "Hey, I'm changing. Give me a second." And then she opened the door, and there was nobody there. And she was like, "Ah," and she was out of there. Oh, and here's a good day. But I don't know if this was the ghost that our male ghost, or if it was Lydia. One of our tour guides was talking about Lydia that particular time in one of the rooms. And in the other room, we had a travel-sized bed frame hanging on the wall. These travel-sized bed frames are, let's see, what are they? They're about 24 inches wide. They're not very big. And these are what the ladies would haul with them from place to place. Really, really narrow beds, like basically wide enough for one person to lay on. And you'd have to be careful when you rolled over because you'd fall out of bed. So this was hanging on the wall as a display. And it's metal, not easy to move. She looked into the other room, and this bed frame went up 90 degrees on the wall, hung there for a minute, smacked against the wall 3 times, and then just kind of rattled in place. And she was like, "Okay, thank you very much, folks. Tour's over. I got to go." So this particular guide was a bit of a prankster. So she thought that some of the bartenders were playing a joke on her. So she went over to check for wires or string or anything that could have made it move like that. And there was nothing.
I mean, that's a lot of force to be able to do that. That's a very strong spirit.
Yeah, a lot of force.
So who is this guy? Who is this male spirit? I know you're sitting there alone in the bar and you're scared, but I'm here with you. I'm here.
Great. If I run out of here shrieking, I'll be okay. Text me later. Okay, so from what we can gather, he used to be a bouncer that worked here. He would, greet the male guests, escort them to the ladies' room, and then part of his job was to ensure the ladies' safety and make sure that the men were paying for their allotted time, and when their time was up, that he would collect more money from them. From what I've learned, just based on people's experiences, is that he was... Sorry, there's some crazy noise happening, but I think it's our construction guys outside, or at least that's what I hope it is.
Is it him? Is it John?
I don't know. I'm not going to go investigate. I'm also on a phone with a cord, so I can't. So anyway, we call him John. That's not his real name. He doesn't like his real name used because he doesn't want to be recognized. He was a very mean, terrible man. He was abusive towards the girls. He was, can I say a derogatory term on?
Oh, yeah.
He was an asshole.
He's an asshole ghost. I love it. But not good for Lydia. She has to be stuck with some asshole in the afterlife.
And I don't know if he bugs her or not. I don't know if they interact in that way. How I he was the first ghost experience that I had that was an olfactory experience. I didn't even know that was a thing. And he's got this like really awful BO, and that's what I smelled. And the room that I was in had just been cleaned. Like, it smelled like Lysol. It was completely spotless. It was totally clean.
It smelled like Lysol.
And then I noticed the smell was like this bad BO smell
he's
was
disgusting.
moving around the room.
Ugh.
Like, it was in different spots around the room. And I was like, wait a second, am I losing my mind? Like, what? It's early. So my coworker came in and I was like, hey, come tell me where the smell is.
And you're like, it's
room.
not me because I've showered.
Right. And plus, I never smell like, even on my worst day, I never smell as stinky as that. And she came in and she was like, oh my God, what is that smell? And she located the same spot where I had found it, which was in the center of the room. Like, there was nothing that the smell could have been attached to. And we're like, uh-oh.
Oh, so he was just in there, standing there, staring at you, ladies. That's creepy.
Yep. Totally creepy.
And I bet you can feel it too. I bet you can feel it when he's around.
Yeah. Well, I try not to. I try really hard not to. So a lot of time when I go up there, I close myself off so I'm not open to feeling any of that stuff. Because even though I've done this for a very long time, it is still nerve-wracking. And it's still unnerving. It's still unnerving. We sometimes get phone calls and there's like nothing there. Up in our office, which is not even, it's a totally new building, but it's attached to the Red Onion. We get weird stuff happening. And he's more aggressive. Like, he slams the doors, he stomps around, and Lydia got blamed for the stomping for a lot of years, but it wasn't her. It turns out it was him. We just didn't know it was him until we figured it out.
And have any of the other employees had experiences with him that were scary?
Oh yeah. Yes. Yes. Lots of employees. Well, here's with him, I'm going to tell you a story about him, and then I want to tell you a story about Lydia that's really sweet. Or I think it's super sweet. So there's a space up there where people sometimes work by themselves for a little bit. And we had this young kid. He was new to town. He was like basically fresh off the boat. He had never left home before, and he was from interior of Alaska or south central Alaska, and he came to Skagway for a summer. He was working up there, and I didn't find out about what was happening to him until later. But this particular male ghost, John, was somehow drawn to this kid and was showing him what he used to do to the girls when he was alive and when he worked upstairs. And so this kid was being like, how he would see this stuff was in dreams, and it was terrifying for him. And he would see himself being murdered over and over again by the same person, and in a couple different ways. But the most common way was a stabbing, which is how I figured he died. And I actually knew that before this kid told me about this.
So he was dreaming John's dreams? He was having his feelings?
Dreaming John's actions, like what he did. John was showing him who he was when he was alive. Does that make sense?
Yes. So what was he doing besides dying? And rightly so. It sounds like the guy was murdered because he was such an asshole.
He was murdered. He was murdered upstairs in the hallway, actually, of the brothel.
Wow.
He was sexually and physically assaulting the girls.
Of course he was.
Yeah, it was awful. So this kid was seeing this. He was the sweetest.
The poor guy. He's like, I just wanted to work. I just wanted a job.
Yeah.
What happened to him?
He ended up quitting because he was so freaked out.
He got run out. He couldn't handle Skagway. It was too much.
No,
it was
because of the ghost.
Too haunted. Poor kid.
Too haunted.
I'm going home.
He went home and he thought the ghost followed him, which he didn't. So it turns out this kid, he coming to Skagway opened him up to his ghost sensitivities, and the place he was living at in where he went back home to also had a ghost.
So he just opened up his mediumship. That's
Yes,
crazy.
exactly. And with such a horrible experience to be like, hey, this is your first ghost experience. Here you go. Good luck with that one. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
Terrifying.
So terrifying.
This poor guy. Yeah, he basically ran out of here screaming. But then there was another fellow working up, and this is a cute story, but this fellow was working up there and he'd play music and he liked to play hip hop and rap and like that kind of music. He said to me one day, he's like, Lydia has been doing this every day and then this and this. Like she was messing with him. I can't remember exactly what she was doing, but she would mess with him every day. And I just said to him, try changing the music. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, she hates that kind of music. Like just change the music. So he did. And he never had a problem with her again. It was so great. And one of her favorites, which I thought was hilarious, or when this fellow seemed to have the least amount of troubles with Lydia, was when he played Social Distortion.
Nice.
Which I thought was fantastic. She seems to like the heavier rock music, but not rap or hip hop or anything like that.
What a trip. So you've identified 2 ghosts. It sounds like there have been some others that have been seen in photos. Is there anybody else at the Red Onion?
I'm sure there are. I haven't seen them, and people tell us about them, but they can't give us much detail. Like we did have one lady come up. Gosh, this was years ago, but it's always stuck with me. So the building now is a little bit different than it was. The original building is intact, but then, of course, to accommodate modern times, we've had to add on bathrooms and a freezer, utility rooms. And then we've got a second area where we gather tours in. And then we have an office, and that's on a 3rd story. And those parts, that particular part was built back in 2002. So there has not been enough activity there for there to be ghosts. But I guess the ghosts come out of the Red Onion because they're attached and go into that particular room. And this had never occurred to me. And this woman was on our tour and said, there are more ghosts in this place other than just Lydia. And our guide was like, oh, she goes, the Bombay room was filled with them. Oh, like she saw like 20 ghosts down there.
20 ghosts. Wow.
Yeah, a lot.
But I mean, it makes sense. The ghosts, checking out the new digs attached to the saloon.
It was really strange.
And there's probably insulation over there.
Still cold in the winter, believe me.
I have no doubt Alaska's freezing in the winter.
The wind. Skagway stands for home of the north wind. And we're kind of built, we're a very deep valley. It's a deep valley. And the wind blows, and it almost goes perfectly north to south. It's a little bit off, but the wind blows from the north in the wintertime and blows from the south in the summertime. It's a very windy city. Needless to say, we rarely have a bug problem.
That's good because I don't like bugs. I don't do bugs or ghosts in my house. They can be outside. It's fine.
Oh, that's fair.
Nothing inside.
I agree 100%.
But I don't think the spirits are going anywhere at the Red Onion. I think they're very happy living there.
Well, Lydia definitely is. And we have people, we get people that send us hate mail, but then we also have people that send Lydia love letters, like not love letters per se professing their undying love for her, but just sweet letters that they send to her. For example, a few years ago, we had a gentleman, middle of winter, send this really lovely letter to Lydia and a teddy bear. And he goes, I heard your story, and I just wanted to send Lydia this teddy bear. And would you mind leaving it in the museum for her and maybe reading her the note? And so we did.
That's an interesting dude.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd be happy if my husband did that, but
well,
he's probably an unmarried man. But tell me about the hate mail. Who's sending you hate mail?
I don't even know. Well, I mean, over the years, it's been a variety of different people, but people who who tell us we're bad people for not exercising the ghost. There was one letter we got. It was so crazy. I couldn't even finish reading it. And the way it was 10 pages of just this written weirdness. And we just got rid of that kind of stuff.
Oh, people are so weird.
I mean, everybody's entitled to their opinion, I guess.
I know, but get a life. Get a life. And what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to like hire an exorcism team to come in. You know, you're like, I'm just a curator of a museum. I'm just trying to get through my day.
We've had priests volunteer to do it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I got an email this summer. A man who was a priest who asked if we wanted an exorcism. No, we don't. And I don't think Lydia does either. She likes it here. She has never expressed her malcontent. And I think she would.
Yeah.
Because she does like to do other things. But yeah, so we get all kinds of stuff. But we do get, like I said, the nice ones too. The sweet, like, oh, poor Lydia, her life must have been so hard. Please tell her we're thinking of her. That kind of thing. Really. The teddy bear was the sweetest, though.
Yeah.
And so we still have the teddy bear in the museum. It sits on the bed, one of the beds. And when guests ask about it, we just explain what it was. Like, there are kind-hearted people out there.
Yeah, she has guys out there still wanting to give her things. Oh.
Right. She has fans. She will come downstairs into the bar sometimes. There have been reported cases of little not footprints, but boot print on top of the bar. Oh my gosh, I forgot about this. I'm going to get all over the place with this. There's a picture, which I cannot find anymore, but we had a bartender who worked here a long time ago, and I think it might have been the summer before he passed away in the winter. He had an accident and ended up dying in the winter time, and it might have been the summer before his accident. There's a picture somebody took of Lydia standing behind him in the bar. Like, you can see her. Wow. It's so crazy. She liked him. She doesn't often like men.
She's dressed in the Victorian outfit and the whole bit.
Yes, and she was very ethereal and like a typical, the white kind of, you know, you've seen those images where they're like the white misty. That was what that image looked like. It was incredible.
That is incredible.
So she comes into the bar sometimes, and she's very protective of the people that work here that she likes. And she liked him a lot. She doesn't tolerate abusive behavior. So there was a man and his wife sitting in the bar. This guy was being a real jackass to his wife. He was being rude and just verbally abusive and awful. And the bartender was getting upset. You know, she was calling him out a little bit, but he was beyond reproach at that point. So he got up to go to the bathroom, came back, and it was just them, you know, in this particular area. He came back to sit down, and somehow his feet got pulled out from behind him. And as he was laying there on the ground, a tiny little boot print, well, not tiny, but a small boot print ended up on his chest, a dusty boot print.
You go, Lydia. Good for her.
I know, right?
I like it.
Yeah, she was like defending this woman. Like, you can't be a jerk in here. Yeah. It was awesome.
And you know, she doesn't have to put up with crap in the afterlife.
No.
She's empowered now.
Right. And she can certainly give a little, which is awesome.
That is awesome. Cori, this has been such a fun interview. Thank you so much for being on with us. Great stories. You go, Lydia. It sounds like you have a team of ghosts there helping you all out with all the cruise people when they descend upon you.
Yes, we do.
That's awesome. So did you hear it? What the heck was that? That was really creepy, right?
To their opinion, I guess. But
it sort of sounds like she's saying, I think so. You know, because they're talking about how everyone has their own opinion. And this woman's voice chimes in, I think so.
To their opinion, I guess.
But I can't wait to hear what you think. Oh my gosh. Please hit me up at Creepy Podcast on Instagram and let me know what you think it is. Oh my God. Or get me on my website, creepypodcast.com, or you can always email me info@creepypodcast.com. Oh boy. My first EVP. Yay. If you share my obsession with creepy things, please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review. If you screenshot a written review and email it to info@creepypodcast.com,
you will be entered to win my favorite creepy candle of the week from acandlestory.com. Winners for all our giveaways are contacted directly and announced on our Instagram page @creepypodcast. Please check out our website, creepypodcast.com, for all the terms and conditions and the latest show giveaways. Thank you for listening.
Toxic content.